Why don't predators of poisonous snakes die from eating venom?
When animals that feed on poisonous snakes eat their prey, they also eat the venom that snake has stored up. But this venom that would kill other animals does not kill the snake's predator. Why? Because these predators have a built-in resistance to the venom of the snakes they eat. An opossum can eat a rattlesnake, venom and all, and only suffer a mild reaction. The same amount of venom that goes into the opossum's stomach would be enough to kill a horse.
What is puberty?
Puberty is a time of tremendous change, physical and emotional, that everyone experiences on his or her way to becoming an adult. After the many changes of puberty, people are physically able to reproduce, or have children. Though it takes many more years to develop the emotional maturity required for such a decision. While there are many common elements, every person experiences puberty a little bit differently. And kids go through the changes of puberty at all different paces. Some develop early, others late. Girls experience different changes than boys. Puberty can be exciting, but it can also be confusing, scary, and lonely. The changes associated with puberty are triggered by the release of certain hormones. Primarily estrogen for girls and testosterone for boys, that signal the body to grow and change. Puberty usually starts between the ages of 8 and 13 for girls and between 10 and 15 for boys. Though it's normal for some kids to develop later. During puberty, kids' bodies will not only grow taller, they will also change their basic shapes. Hair that was formerly soft and downy in places like the armpits, genital area, and, for boys, the face begins to grow in thicker and darker. During puberty, girls develop breasts, their waists get narrower, and their hips broaden. Some girls are alarmed to notice that they gain weight or fill out during puberty, but this change is normal and healthy. It's not a good idea to try to counteract the normal growth of puberty with dieting. The female hormones released at puberty eventually trigger menstruation. During each menstrual cycle, which is usually about a month long, an egg is released from one of two ovaries in a girl or woman's body. If the egg were fertilized by sperm, it would implant in the uterus or womb, and eventually grow into a baby. The uterus prepares for pregnancy each cycle by creating a lining of extra tissue and blood that would nourish a growing fetus. If the egg is unfertilized, that lining is expelled through the vagina. A missed period could be a normal occurrence. Many women have irregular cycles, or it may be a sign of pregnancy. Boys' bodies change in different ways during puberty. They get broader shoulders, more developed muscles, and larger penises and testes. Their faces change to look more adult, and their voices deepen as well. Kids going through puberty often notice emotional changes that accompany the physical transformation. Part of the emotional roller coaster of puberty comes from the hormones coursing through your body. And part of it is just confusion and fear about changing from a kid to an adult. It's important to remember, though, that everyone goes through it. And often it can really help to talk about these feelings with a friend or a trusted adult.
Why do people speak different languages?
While some animals have demonstrated the ability to communicate with other animals and with humans, people are the only creatures on Earth who communicate through language, which is a system of vocal symbols. Scientists don't know exactly when humans first spoke, though they know that it happened a very long time ago, in prehistoric times. Different languages arose when groups of people separated by things like deserts, mountains, or great oceans developed their own systems of communicating that reflected their unique ways of life. These new languages were passed on when children learned to speak the same way the people around them did. As groups of people spread out to settle different parts of the world, they took their languages with them. They began to pronounce some words differently as time passed and had to add words to describe the new things and situations they found in distant lands. Languages gradually changed from their parent languages, though they still shared some characteristics. Today, English and French are languages that seem very different from one another. But they came from the same parent language, Indo-European, a long time ago. All languages that share a parent language belong to the same family. There are 13 large language families in the world today, from which most languages have descended.
Do all people live in houses?
Nearly all people in the world live in some kind of shelter. But a great many of these shelters look very different from the kinds of buildings we think of as homes. House types differ around the world because climates, local building materials, and ways of life vary greatly. In Southeast Asia, for example, where many people live on the banks of large rivers that frequently overflow, houses are built on stilts. In South America's rainforests, tribes of indigenous, or native peoples build huts with thick domed roofs made of palm leaves that keep the heavy rains out. People that live near marshy rivers sometimes use the heavy reeds that grow there to build their houses. And people who live near large forests often have houses made of wood. People who live in hot countries sometimes build their homes from bricks that are sun-dried blocks of mud. In many of these places, modern building materials are available. But the region's traditional shelters are still made because local materials are far cheaper. Some people take their homes with them. Such people are known as nomads, and their portable homes are usually tents made of sturdy poles, ropes, and fabric. Nomads usually live off the land by raising livestock or hunting. They are constantly on the move, in search of food or grazing land for their animals. Their tents, which are easy to set up and take down, are carried along on their journeys. People who live in deserts, like the Bedouins of the Middle East, are frequently tent dwellers. But hunting bushmen in Africa's Kalahari Desert carry huts made of sticks and grass around with them for use as shelters at night. Most of the world's people don't have shelters with the features that we think are essential for comfort and safety in a home, like electricity and running water. A surprising 80% of the population live in what we would call substandard housing.
What better reason could you have for taking good care of the library materials that you use?
It makes sense to treat them with the same respect that you would your own possessions or those of a friend. It's also important to return borrowed library material on time, so that another library user can have his or her turn using it.
Why do woodpeckers make such a racket?
Most woodpeckers spend most of their lives in trees. But instead of perching on a branch, woodpeckers spend their days climbing up the tree in a spiral pattern, searching for insects to eat. Some also eat berries and fruit, and others, called the sap suckers, eat tree sap. They find insects by repeatedly and rapidly pecking at tree bark with their sharp bills, an action that produces the telltale hammering noise. Woodpeckers have long, thin tongues that they use to reach into the holes they've created and pull out insects. Woodpeckers also peck at trees to carve out holes they can use for nests. Male woodpeckers make such tapping noises to attract a mate and to tell other males where their territory is, and to keep away from it. Woodpeckers have thick, strong skulls that protect their brains and other organs from the stress of their repeated pecking.
Why are there 7 days in a week?
Scholars are not sure why it was decided that a week is 7 days long. There are many different theories. The beginning of the Bible states that the world was made in 6 days, and on the seventh day God rested. This biblical source, however, does not explain the 7-day week established in societies that did not know of or follow the teachings of the Bible. One widely held theory explains that in ancient times, many civilizations all over the world believed that each day was governed by either the sun, the moon, or one of the 5 planets that were then known. Because each of the 7 astronomical bodies ruled one day, there were 7 days in a week. Before the 7-day week became widely accepted, Many societies base their week on the amount of time between market days. If it was decided that farmers needed 9 days to accumulate and transport their goods to the marketplace, and the market day was the 10th day, then the week was 10 days long.
What do the stars and stripes on the United States flag mean?
When the first United States flag was adopted in 1777, it had 13 alternating red and white stripes. 7 red, 6 white, and, in the upper left portion, 13 white stars on a blue background. The number 13 was chosen because that was the number of original states that formed the United States. For several years after that design was adopted, a new stripe and a new star were added each time a new state joined the Union. But in 1818 Congress decided to keep the number of stripes at 13 and simply add a new star for each new state. The U.S. flag has several nicknames: the Stars and Stripes, the Star-Spangled Banner, and Old Glory. At the time the U.S. flag was designed, the stars and stripes, and the colors of each, were given no specific meaning. The ideas for the design most likely were based on other countries' flags. In 1782, when the national seal was designed and the flag was incorporated into it, national leaders decided that each color and symbol should have a meaning. As reported in the book Our Flag, published by the U.S. House of Representatives in 1989, it was decided that red symbolized hardiness, strength and valor, bravery. White symbolized purity and innocence, and blue represented vigilance, perseverance, and justice. It has also been said that the stars are symbols of the heavens, and the stripes represent rays of light coming from the sun.
How many different languages are there?
There are more than 4,000 languages spoken in the world today. In some large countries, several languages are spoken. India has more than 800. In other large countries, different versions or dialects of the same language are spoken in different areas. In both cases, an official language is usually chosen for the country. That language is used in schools, by the mass media, like television, and by the government. Many languages have no written form. Tribal languages, like some spoken in Africa and Australia, for example, have been passed on orally, by word of mouth. Such unrecorded native languages often disappear when their speakers learn and use the official languages of the countries in which they live. In fact, one reason that languages like Spanish and English are spoken in so many different parts of the world is because people who spoke them conquered and colonized many foreign lands, replacing native cultures and languages with their own. For a long time people have been trying to invent a world language that everyone can speak and understand, attempting to remove the barriers that different languages create. The best known of these is Esperanto, invented by a Polish man named Ludwig L. Zamenhof in the late 19th century. This and other international languages have not been very successful. Universal pictures, signs, and symbols have actually been the most effective way of communicating worldwide. Another way to break the language barrier is to study a second language like French or Spanish. Many people in the world know at least 2 languages very well. Such people are considered bilingual, or multilingual if they know more than 2 languages.
Is the horned toad really a toad?
In spite of its name, the horned toad, also called horny toad, is not a toad, or even an amphibian. The horned toad is actually a lizard, and therefore a reptile, also known more accurately as the horned lizard. It lives in dry, sandy regions in western North America, where it burrows itself up to its head in sand. This animal has a very specialized diet, eating mostly ants, and unusual ways of defending itself from predators. The horned toad can puff itself up to a larger size by sucking in air. And in rare cases, the horned toad has been known to shoot blood out of its eyes to frighten attackers.
How is a lake different from a sea or ocean?
A lake is different from a sea or ocean because it is completely surrounded by land. It is situated in a basin or hollow on Earth's surface and is usually shallow compared to a sea or ocean. Most lakes contain fresh water, though some, especially those located in dry areas, are filled with salt water. Lakes may get their water supply from rivers that empty into them, or from underground springs, or from rain or melted snow. Lake Superior, located on the border between the United States and Canada, is the largest freshwater lake in the world, covering 31,700 square miles, 82,103 square kilometers. Lake Baikal, located in Russia, is the deepest freshwater lake, reaching down 6,365 feet, 1,940 meters.
Why do birds migrate?
Many species of birds spend part of the year, the warmer months, in northern regions, and then migrate south when the weather starts to get cold. Birds follow this southward path primarily in search of an abundant, accessible food supply. Birds use up the energy they get from food very quickly, and they need to eat often. So when the ground begins to freeze and food supplies, particularly insects, are harder to find, many birds head south. Birds that spend a lot of time in water, ducks and geese, for example, have an additional reason to migrate. The northern lakes and ponds where they live freeze over in the winter. Migrating birds spend the winter months in the warmer, southern climate. And as spring returns to the north, so do migrating birds.
Why do I feel thirsty?
When your body is low on water, or dehydrated, the moist lining of your mouth and throat become dry. Thirst sensors there send a message to your brain, which tells you to drink at once. About 3/4 of the human body is made of fluids. And the average adult must take in about 2½ quarts, about 2½ liters, of water. And other healthy beverages, like fruit juice, every day to remain healthy. Though some of the fluids we need also come from solid foods, which contain large amounts of water. Sometimes you may feel thirsty even when your body isn't dehydrated, things like dry, dusty air or salty food can draw moisture from your mouth and throat, alerting your thirst sensors. To demonstrate this, try swallowing dry crackers without taking a drink.
How big were the largest dinosaurs?
Information about dinosaurs changes all the time as new bones are found and new evidence about their surroundings becomes available. Each year, scientists discover around 7 new types of dinosaurs. The dinosaur now considered the largest could be pushed out of first place by another creature soon to be discovered. The largest dinosaurs belong to the group called sauropods. These giant plant eaters include the Apatosaurus, pronounced Apatosaurus. Used to be called Brontosaurus, and Brachiosaurus, pronounced Brachiosaurus. Which weighed around 80 tons, that's 160,000 pounds, or 72,640 kilograms, and stood 50 feet, 15 meters, tall. Among the longest of these dinosaurs were the Seismosaurus, pronounced Syzmosaurus, and Supersaurus. The Seismosaurus may have been as long as 150 feet, 45 meters. While the Supersaurus may have stretched to nearly 100 feet, 30 meters. A newly discovered dinosaur, called Paralitidan, is thought to have been close to 100 feet. 30 meters, long, weighing close to 70 tons, 140,000 pounds, or 63,560 kilograms. The upper bone of its forelimb, front leg, is 6 feet, 7 inches long, close to 2 meters. The Argentinosaurus, thought to weigh as much as 100 tons, 200,000 pounds, or 90,800 kilograms. Was uncovered in the late 1990s in Argentina, which was home to many of the world's largest dinosaurs. These gentle giants were once thought to live in watery, swampy regions. But recent evidence suggests that most of them were forest dwellers who ate leaves from the tops of trees. They had enormous bodies, very long necks, relatively small heads, and thick, tree trunk-like legs, much like an elephant's legs. They moved very slowly and didn't have many ways to defend themselves. But their tremendous size kept most predators away.
How can cows make so much milk?
A cow, like all mammals, produces milk to feed its young. If its calf nurses regularly, the mother cow's mammary glands will produce enough milk to give the baby animal all the food it needs. Gradually a calf will nurse less as grass and other feed makes up more of its diet. A mother cow, in turn, will produce less milk until it is no longer needed. But by milking the cows regularly 2 or 3 times a day, dairy farmers can cause the cows to continue producing milk. Certain breeds of cows are particularly good at milk making, producing 18 to 27 pints, around 2 to 3 gallons, or 10 to 15 liters, each day. A cow's large, round udder, located on its underside, has 4 nipples, or teats, that are squeezed to release stored milk. While once done by hand, milking is done on modern dairy farms by machines with suction hoses, which do the job more quickly and cheaply. Tank trucks collect milk from farms daily and take it to processing plants where it is pasteurized, made germ-free, and used to make dairy products like cheese, butter, and ice cream. While 90% of the world's milk today comes from cows, that was not always the case. Goats and sheep which could graze on vegetation that grew in lands too dry for cows were long used as important sources of milk and dairy products. Their milk, and the milk of other animals like camels, buffalo, yaks, llamas, and reindeer, is still used today, though in small quantities compared to cow's milk. Every mammal makes milk that is different from that of other mammals. Milk that is especially suited to its young and to the environment in which its babies must grow. Reindeer milk, for instance, has 4 times the fat of cow milk because reindeer live in colder climates, and more calories are required for living in wintry surroundings. But all animals' milk shares many basic qualities and is full of vital nutrients.
Why can't some people hear?
The inability to hear, or deafness, can occur for many reasons. Some types of hearing loss result from something blocking sound as it travels from the outer ear to the eardrum and the tiny bones in the middle ear. Other types of loss arise from damage or defect to the inner ear or the auditory nerve, which is the nerve that carries sound signals from the inner ear to the brain. Deafness can happen as a result of disease, including severe ear infections, or it can be inherited, with the deafness being apparent at birth or sometimes showing up years later. Injuries and accidents also account for many cases of deafness. Extremely loud noises, like those that come from an explosion, can cause deafness, though that loss of hearing is sometimes temporary. People who work in noisy factories or those who are frequently exposed to very loud music can also develop hearing loss over time. Many people gradually lose some or all of their hearing when they reach old age. But some of those types of hearing loss can be overcome by wearing a hearing aid, which makes noises like speech or music louder.
Which animal is the most intelligent?
Ask 5 scientists to list the most intelligent animals, and you'll get 5 different lists. Most experts believe that humans are the most evolved, complex, intelligent animals, but there are some people who question this. Part of the problem in determining the most intelligent animals is that there are several different kinds of intelligence: the ability to communicate, to adapt to the environment, and to solve problems. And scientists have always struggled to learn how an animal's mind works when communication between animals and humans is so limited. Many studies have shown that primates are the most intelligent animals. The primate family includes human beings as well as chimpanzees, gorillas, orangutans, baboons, gibbons, and monkeys. Those animals, with chimps at the top of the list, hold the top 6 spots on biologist Edward O. Wilson's list of the 10 most intelligent animals aside from humans. Primates have large, complex brains, and they can build complicated cultures and, to some degree, control their environment. They can communicate with others of their species and develop language skills. Several marine animals, including the killer whale and many dolphin species, have been listed as some of the most intelligent animals on the planet. Elephants and pigs are also believed to be highly intelligent.
How is sonar different from radar?
Sonar, short for sound navigation ranging, and radar, radio detection and ranging, work in much the same way to locate distant objects. In both cases, invisible waves are sent out and reflected back once they hit something solid. The time it takes for the waves to return to their point of origin tells how far away an object is located. Radar uses a certain type of light wave known as a radio wave to locate objects. Like all light waves, radar travels in a straight line and at a constant speed. At 186,000 miles, 299,274 kilometers per second, which is the speed of light. Sonar uses sound waves to locate objects. These waves, too, travel in a straight line, but at varying speeds, depending on what they are traveling through. Sound is caused by the vibration of an object, which in turn vibrates surrounding molecules that make sound waves in a kind of chain reaction. Sonar detection is mainly used underwater, where light waves do not travel well. In water, sound waves move about 4 times faster than they do through air because water is denser and has more molecules that can vibrate. But even at 4,600 feet, 1,400 meters per second, sound waves travel much more slowly than light waves. They also can't be used in outer space, which is airless and has essentially no molecules at all.
Why do I have to brush and floss my teeth?
Brushing and flossing your teeth is critical to keeping them healthy and free from decay. With good dental habits, you can have your teeth for a lifetime. Because your mouth is dark, wet, and warm, it is a perfect place for germs like bacteria to grow, feeding on bits of old food. Removing food from your teeth after eating is a good way to limit the amount of tooth-damaging germs in your mouth. Because most food particles stick between your teeth and at the spot where your gums and teeth meet. Keeping those places clean is especially important. Just scrubbing with a toothbrush usually can't do this, so dental floss should be used, too. When bacteria break down certain foods in your mouth, they form an acid that dissolves the hard outer covering, enamel, of teeth. Over time a small hole, or cavity, may form on a tooth, allowing bacteria to travel farther inside. A dentist usually uses a filling made of metal or plastic to fill in the cavity and stop the decay. But if not caught and treated early, decay may spread, reaching tooth roots and nerves and causing pain and infection. When a tooth becomes too damaged, it may fall out or a dentist may have to remove it.
What is a silo?
The tall, cylinder-shaped farm structures known as silos are used to store silage, which is animal feed. Silage is moist feed made from green crops that ferment when stored in an airtight place. This fermentation process preserves the feed, which is used along with or instead of hay, dried grasses, to feed livestock like horses, cattle, and sheep during the winter when they cannot feed in green pastures. Silage gives farm animals needed nutrients. Before farmers started to raise food crops to feed their livestock. During the 18th century, they had to kill most of their animals when winter approached. Because grass in pasture lands stopped growing and the creatures faced starvation. But herds of livestock could be kept year-round once farmers began to grow crops for winter feed. Root crops like turnips, as well as leafy crops, were sometimes used. Today, corn is the crop most often used for silage.
Why do teeth fall out?
Normally, only baby teeth fall out. And they do so when permanent teeth push up from below to take their place. As the permanent teeth push up, they destroy the roots, which are buried in the gums, of baby teeth. Without roots to anchor them to the jawbone, teeth become loose and fall out. Permanent teeth can fall out, too, when disease or injury destroys their roots.
Are all dolphins mammals?
When we refer to dolphins, we usually mean the mammals that are in the same family with whales and porpoises. But there are some types of fish that are also referred to as dolphins. One that is known as mahi-mahi or dorado, and another called pompano dolphin. These fish, popular in sport fishing and as food, do not resemble the mammalian dolphins.
How long ago did dinosaurs live?
Dinosaurs first appeared about 230 million years ago, during the Triassic period. Their large size and vast numbers meant that they dominated animal life on Earth for millions of years. Dinosaurs became extinct around 65 million years ago, at the end of the Cretaceous period. The earliest human beings lived about 2 million years ago. Millions of years after the last dinosaur had died. Earth was much different when dinosaurs roamed the planet. Several 100 million years ago, instead of there being 7 continents or large land masses, there was just one giant mass of land that was surrounded by ocean. This land mass gradually broke apart into separate continents. Areas that are now covered with tall buildings or mountain ranges were once beneath the sea. And scientists believe the climate was fairly warm throughout the year. By the end of the era in which dinosaurs lived, temperatures had cooled and distinct seasons had developed.
Why are there 2 scales for measuring temperature?
Temperature is the amount of heat in a gas, liquid, or solid. Heat results from the kinetic energy, or rate of movement, of the molecules in objects or matter. If the molecules move slowly, the temperature is lower, and if they move quickly, the temperature is higher. Any number of different scales can be used to measure heat. All that is needed to create a scale are 2 reference temperatures and degrees that mark off intervals in the range of temperatures between them. In the 2 temperature measurement systems used most often, Celsius, also called centigrade, and Fahrenheit, the 2 reference points are the boiling and freezing temperatures of water. Celsius is based on the metric system, so 100 intervals or degrees separate these 2 points. Water freezes at 0 degrees Celsius and boils at 100 degrees Celsius. The Fahrenheit scale, widely used in English-speaking countries until recently and still used in the United States today, has 180 units or degrees that separate the freezing and boiling points of water, with 32 degrees Fahrenheit being the freezing point and 212 degrees Fahrenheit being the boiling point. Other temperature measurement scales include the Kelvin scale, which is used in astronomy and other sciences. One of its reference points is absolute zero, which in theory is the lowest possible temperature. The point at which molecules have no kinetic energy or heat. The Celsius, Fahrenheit, and Kelvin scales all got their names from the men who invented them. Mathematical equations can be used to convert temperature measurements from one scale to another. To convert Fahrenheit to Celsius, subtract 32 from the temperature and then divide by 1.8. To convert Celsius to Fahrenheit, multiply the temperature by 1.8 and then add 32. To convert Celsius to Kelvin, simply add 273.15 to the Celsius temperature.
Why are some flying insects drawn to lights at night?
Scientists aren't exactly sure why this happens. They have noticed that on clear nights, when the moon is visible, fewer insects gravitate to artificial lights. This observation has given rise to a theory, for millions of years. Insects have used the light of the moon, coming from one direction above to guide them during night flight. But artificial lights, which put out rays of illumination in all directions, confuse this ancient navigational system. Flying in a straight line is impossible when an insect is around an artificial light, which causes it to fly in circles.
What is a laser?
A laser, which is short for light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation, is a device that produces laser light. Laser light is more powerful than ordinary light because all its rays have the same wavelength and move together, allowing them to be focused in a narrow beam with great precision. The rays that make up regular light are made of several wavelengths that spread out in all directions once they leave their source. A laser beam can be focused on so small an area that it can put 200 holes on the head of a pin. Laser light beams vary in strength, depending on the materials and amount of energy used to make them. Some made of invisible infrared rays can create so much heat that they can cut through metal. Because laser beams can be controlled with such precision, these same infrared rays can be used instead of scalpels to perform the most delicate surgeries. Lasers that produce visible light beams are equally useful, both in scientific work and in our everyday lives. Because laser beams can measure great distances with such accuracy, for example, they have been reflected from mirrors placed on the moon to record our exact distance from it. Telephone and computer signals are sometimes changed into laser light so that they can travel with great speed through glass fiber optic cables. Low-powered light lasers read the barcodes on the labels of products we buy at stores and scan the patterns etched on compact discs to give us music.
Why are there so many big trucks on the road?
The purpose of most trucks is to transport goods. Trucks carry materials and parts for manufacturing, finished goods, and food items from the places where they are produced to the places where they are needed. Everything that you see in a store got there by truck. No wonder there are so many trucks on the road. The bigger the truck, the more goods it can carry during a single trip. But for safety reasons, the length of trucks as well as the amount of weight that they are allowed to carry is often regulated. Even things produced overseas eventually make their way to you by truck. Either flown over by cargo plane or shipped by boat. The goods eventually make their way into trucks as they start their overland journey. Not too long ago, though, most goods were transported especially over long distances by railroad. Some still are. But trucks gradually took over the job as roadways expanded and improved. Trucks were preferable because they could take goods directly to their destinations while trains could only travel between stations. When you look at how many abandoned railroad yards and tracks there are around the country, it helps you realize the important role they once played in transporting goods.
How many eggs can a chicken lay?
Today, certain breeds of chickens are raised to be eaten because they grow quickly and have a lot of flesh. Other breeds are good egg layers and are raised for that purpose. The best kind of laying hen can produce one or more eggs every day of its adult life, which lasts about a year. A hen that lays large eggs like the popular Leghorn breed is desirable because more money can be charged for larger eggs. Before modern farming, chickens were kept in special houses called coops, where they had nests and laid their eggs, which were later gathered by hand by farm members. They were fed kitchen scraps and spare grain, and they spent their days pecking away in farmyards, looking for insects or seeds or any other food they could find. At night they were shut into their coops, warm and safe from hungry wild animals like foxes. Only small numbers of chickens were kept and only limited numbers of eggs were produced. Today, to keep up with the world's growing need for food and to maximize profits, most chicken farmers keep the birds in huge, mechanized, indoor structures that house more than 100,000 birds at a time. Growing conditions like temperature and light are carefully controlled, and scientifically developed feed is used to cause quick growth and rapid egg production. Laying hens never leave their cages and their eggs are collected automatically, by machine.
How do plants cause hay fever?
The male reproductive cells of many plants are encased in a hard grain called pollen. Wind carries the pollen of many trees and grasses from one plant to another. When these male reproductive cells unite with female reproductive cells in plants of the same species, fertilization and seed making takes place. Unlike plants that are pollinated by insects or animals, wind-pollinated plants have to produce huge numbers of pollen grains because wind pollination is a less reliable method of fertilization. During certain parts of the year, the air is filled with such pollen grains, which are fine and dry for easier wind travel. Billions of spores, microscopic reproductive cells produced by other types of plants, like molds, also fill the air. Some people are allergic to all these tiny airborne plant particles. They cause inflammation and extra fluid production in the eyes, nose, and throat, resulting in symptoms like itchy, watery eyes, stuffy noses, coughing, and sneezing. The condition is known as hay fever, though it doesn't usually involve hay or cause a fever. People who have seasonal hay fever get these symptoms in the season of the year when the specific pollen they are allergic to is released. In spring, hay fever may be caused by tree pollens. In summer, grass pollens may be the culprit. Ragweed plants bloom in the late summer and fall, their pollens are the most common cause of hay fever.
What plant makes the largest seeds?
Cocoa palm trees produce coconuts, which are among the largest seeds in the world. Giant fan palms that grow wild in the islands of the Seychelles Republic, located in the Indian Ocean, produce what are known as double coconuts, which can weigh up to 50 pounds, 23 kilograms.
What are some of the different kinds of clouds?
The different conditions of the atmosphere in which clouds form give them their special characteristics and shapes. The many different cloud types fall into three basic categories: low, middle, and high clouds. Cirrus clouds, which are made of ice crystals, form high in the sky amidst very cold air. They often appear thin and wispy. Stratus clouds form low to the ground. Gray in color, they can often be found in low, coastal areas. White, fluffy cumulus clouds, also found fairly low, dot blue skies during fair weather. Some middle cloud types are altocumulus and altostratus. Nimbus clouds are storm clouds. They appear dark because the water droplets, or ice crystals, that form them have grown large enough for gravity to eventually force them to fall to Earth. When water droplets are small, they reflect light. But when they grow large, they absorb light and appear darker. Rain clouds can be low and flat-looking or high and towering. The towering, anvil-shaped rain clouds are called cumulonimbus. And these clouds are responsible for really bad weather like thunderstorms, hailstorms, and tornadoes.
What keeps the bones of my skeleton together?
Your skeleton makes up the hard, strong framework of your body. Your skeleton can move easily because it consists of many bones connected by flexible joints. Joints are kept together by elastic straps called ligaments and by a smooth, flexible tissue called cartilage, which covers and joins the ends of bones. Muscles are usually attached to bones by other tough elastic straps, or bands, called tendons. During movement, when muscles contract, it is the rope-like tendons that pull bones into their new positions.
Why do plants grow toward light?
A plant's ability to make food depends on its ability to absorb enough light energy. So, many plants move in the small ways that they can toward the sun or other light sources. A characteristic known as phototroism. Some plants hold their leaves flat and open during the day to catch as many of the sun's rays as possible and close them at night. Other plants change the direction their leaves face throughout the day, following the path of the sun as it moves across the sky. When a plant grows in uneven sunlight with the light hitting just one side of the plant, let's say chemical messengers called hormones will cause more stems and leaves to grow on the lighted side so that the plant can gather enough of the sunlight it needs to make food. Phototroism explains why houseplants turn their leaves toward windows, growing into lopsided shapes unless they are rotated once in a while.
Why do burning things make smoke?
During a fire, the air around it becomes heated. The heated air sweeps up water vapor, molecules of water that float in the air, and tiny specks of the fuel, the material being burned, into a dark cloud of smoke. The more incompletely something burns, the more smoke it produces. Because more particles are left to be swept up into the air, smoke gradually spreads out and drifts away, with gravity pulling the heaviest bits back to the ground. When a fire first starts to burn, there is usually a lot of smoke, which decreases as more of the fuel is burned completely. Smoke detectors take advantage of the fact that fires cause a lot of smoke in their early stages. The detectors sense the small particles in smoke before a fire really starts to burn. An optical smoke detector uses a light beam and light sensor that sounds an alarm when smoke particles get in the way of the beam. An ionizing smoke detector can sense even smaller particles. They disturb a low electric current inside, which sets off an alarm.
How many different plants are there?
Scientists have found and described more than 275,000 kinds of plants. But they believe that many more are yet to be discovered. Plants vary greatly in size and appearance. Some, like single-celled algae, are so small that you can only see them with the help of a microscope. Others, like giant sequoia trees, are so big that you can't even see the tops of them. Plants are very different from one another because they have developed features over millions of years to help them live in the world's many different environments.
What is lightning?
In a large rain cloud, as water droplets bump into each other and increase in size, they become electrically charged. This activity causes electric charges on the ground, too. Sometimes the charges increase until they become so strong, up to 200 million volts, that electricity runs through the air between the cloud and the ground in the form of a giant spark or lightning bolt. Sometimes, instead of reaching from clouds to the ground, lightning strikes between two electrically charged clouds, or within a single cloud. This lightning looks like a sudden glow of light in the sky, quite different from the jagged streak of light we think of as forked, or bolt, lightning.
How does an eel make electricity?
The electric eel is a South American fish with a long, worm-like body. It can grow to a length of 9 feet, 2.75 meters, and weigh nearly 50 pounds, 22.7 kilometers. The electric eel floats through slow-moving water searching for fish to eat. It breathes air, which means it must come to the surface every few minutes. The electric eel has organs made up of electric plates that run the length of its tail, which makes up most of its body length. This eel, which has no teeth, uses electric shocks to stun its prey, probably to protect its mouth from the struggling, spiny fish it is trying to eat. The eel shocks the fish with several brief electrical charges, temporarily paralyzing it so the eel can suck it into its stomach. The electrical charge can be anywhere from 300 to 600 volts, enough of a shock to jolt a human being. Electric eels are not aggressive, though, and primarily use their electricity to ward off enemies and stun their prey.
How do boats float?
The weight of an object pulls it down into water. It displaces or pushes water aside. But if the object's density, its weight in relation to its size, is less than the density of the water it displaces, it will float. That principle explains why a heavy wooden raft can float in water, while a small stone will sink to the bottom. One spreads its weight over a large area, while the other's weight is concentrated. Boats, which are hollow, float because of this principle. The air inside them makes them less dense than they appear. Large ships that transport heavy material, though, have less air inside when they are carrying a big load. Such ships must be careful about weight limits and have load lines on their hulls that show how low they can ride in the water and still maneuver safely. Weight limits vary with the kind of water the boats are traveling through. They can carry more weight when in saltwater seas, which are denser than fresh water, and in cold water, which is denser than warm water. Boats need a power source to move them forward in the water. In small vessels, this power can be provided by people, who use oars to paddle along. Muscle power can't move boats very fast or very far, though. The wind can be used, too, as long as it's blowing, to move boats equipped with sails. But for a large boat that needs to go a long distance, the most reliable source of power is a motor-driven engine. Depending on the size of the boat, a gasoline engine, diesel engine, or steam engine can do the job. Nuclear power is even used to run some boat engines, like those found in submarines. Motors rotate boat propellers, which have large twisting blades that radiate around a central hub. These blades push water backwards, and the boat moves forward as the disturbed water pushes back. Rotating propellers also create lower water pressure in the space in front of them, which sucks them forward, along with the vessel to which they are attached. Using these same principles of movement, propellers can also power aircraft. A boat is steered by a rudder, which is a flat, upright, movable piece of wood or metal that is attached to its stern, or rear. When turned, the rudder changes the direction of the water around it, which pushes back, forcing the stern, and gradually the rest of the boat, to change direction, too. Because boats must push aside the weight of the water through which their hulls are moving, they do not travel very fast. Water that is pushed one way always pushes back, causing resistance. Boats that are meant to go fast, like speedboats, are designed to ride as high in the water as possible, to minimize water drag. Their hulls are shaped to rise out of the water when they are running at top speeds.
How do scientists measure the strength of an earthquake?
A few different scales measure how strong an earthquake is. The best known is the Richter scale, created in 1935, which uses an instrument called a seismograph to measure the size of the ground waves created by an earthquake. An earthquake's size, or magnitude, generally ranges from 1 to 8 on the Richter scale. Though the waves of some giant quakes have registered well beyond the top of the scale, the shock waves of an earthquake that registers a magnitude of 1 can only be detected with special instruments, while those with a magnitude of 8 cause massive damage. Every increase of one number means a tenfold increase in the strength of an earthquake, for example. A quake that measures 5 on the scale is 10 times stronger than one that measures 4. Some new methods have been devised to measure earthquakes, including one that measures what is called moment magnitude. This scale examines the size of the fault where the earthquake took place and measures how much Earth's crust has slipped. The Mercalli scale is also used to measure the strength of an earthquake. This scale works by describing the effect an earthquake has on people and structures. It lists 12 levels of intensity an earthquake can reach. At level 1, for example, only a few people may feel a quake. But at level 6, it is felt by all and damage starts to occur to buildings. A level 12 earthquake would bring about large-scale destruction.
Why does head hair grow longer than other hair on the body?
LL hairs have a particular lifespan before they fall out. With a lifespan of about 2 to 5 years, head hair grows longer than other hair on your body. Eyebrow hairs, on the other hand, have a lifespan of just 3 to 5 months. If you stopped cutting the hair on your head, you could get it to grow to about your waist before hairs would start to fall out, and new hairs began to grow to replace them. A few people, however, can grow their hair much longer than that. A woman in India holds the record for the longest hair, 13 feet, 10.5 inches.
Are bats blind?
The expression blind as a bat would indicate that bats are blind. But in fact scientists believe they have fairly good eyesight. Bats are nocturnal creatures, coming out after dark to find insects and other food. Some bats, just like humans, can't see very well in the dark. But they make up for this with a unique navigating system called echolocation. These bats make a series of high-pitched sounds, frequently above the hearing range of humans, that bounce off nearby objects, like rocks, trees, or insects. The echoes of these sounds, when they reach the bat's highly sensitive ears, tell the bat where the object is and even, in the case of insects and other animals, what direction it is moving in.
Why do people go to jail?
One of the jobs of a government is to maintain order among its citizens. It does this by making rules known as laws. Every country has its own unique set of laws. Though there are striking similarities among the legal systems of many nations. Numerous laws involve the protection of people and their property. In democratic societies like the United States, government representatives are elected by the people to write new laws and vote on their passage. Federal law governs all residents of the country, but state and local governments can make their own laws. as long as they don't conflict with federal laws. People who break laws are punished by the government. Laws would be useless if they were not enforced and lawbreakers went unpunished. Ideally, U.S. laws are applied equally to all citizens, rich or poor, black or white, male or female. Many lawyers, judges, and police officers strive for such equality. Though sometimes people harbor prejudices against certain kinds of people or certain ethnic groups without even knowing it. Flaws do exist in the justice system, sometimes, for example, wealthy people who can afford to hire a team of expensive, savvy lawyers get special treatment in the form of lighter punishment or no punishment at all. But many of the people who have sworn to uphold our nation's laws try to do so with fairness and compassion. Regardless of the accused's race, ethnicity, or economic status. In the United States, several laws have been written to protect the rights of someone accused of committing a crime. He or she is considered innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Someone suspected of a crime is usually arrested and taken into custody by a police officer. Sometimes, in federal cases, for example, the case is presented before a grand jury. A group of citizens who examine the accusations made. The grand jury files an indictment, or a formal charge, if there appears to be enough evidence for a trial. In many criminal cases, however, there is no grand jury. While awaiting trial, the accused may be temporarily released on bail, which is an amount of money meant to guarantee that the person will return for trial instead of leaving the country, or kept in a local jail. Trials are usually held before a judge and a jury of 12 citizens. The government presents its case against the accused person, or defendant, through a district attorney, and another attorney defends the accused. There are strict rules about what can be used as evidence in a trial. Any evidence taken by police as a result of an illegal search of someone's home, for example, cannot be used against the defendant during the trial. If the defendant is judged innocent, he or she is released. If he or she is found guilty of committing a crime, the judge decides the punishment, or sentence, using established guidelines. The lawbreaker may have to pay a fine or go to prison or both.